Alright, this is Mr. Nunley one last time. I know the last video I said this would be the last one, but I guarantee this is the last video for Act 1. So here we are. We're at Act 1, Scene 5, Romeo and Juliet. We're at the Capulet household. Lord Capulet's throwing a feast to celebrate the end of the feud. Romeo gets invited by an illiterate servant because he helps him read a guest list. Romeo shows up to this party because Rosaline's supposed to be there. Remember, Rosaline's the girl that Romeo's supposedly in love with or infatuated with, because she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. But the moment Romeo walks through the doors and he sees Juliet for the first time, he instantly forgets about Rosaline and immediately falls in love with Juliet. When I say falls in love, again, I mean infatuated. He's not really in love, but he thinks he's in love. So Romeo finally gets up the courage to go speak to Juliet, and here is their exchange. So Romeo says to Juliet, "If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle fine is this. My two lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss." So Romeo makes some comparisons here. Romeo says that Juliet is essentially a holy shrine. So remember, the story takes place in Italy. Most people in Italy practice Catholicism. They're Catholic, and Catholics worship saints. So he's basically saying that Juliet is like a saint, and he is worshiping her. He calls himself, or his lips, pilgrims. So pilgrims are people that make religious journeys. So the pilgrims that came to the U.S. were basically making a religious journey from England so they could practice their own religion in the United States. Some pilgrims, if you're a Catholic pilgrim, you would visit different saints and basically pray to those different saints. Like in today's world, people will make pilgrimages to Israel because it's a holy site, or Jerusalem, in Israel because it's a holy site for Christianity and Catholicism. So Romeo again is calling Juliet a holy shrine, a saint. He's worshiping her, and his lips have traveled a long distance to come worship her. So he's kind of really spitting some game at Juliet to impress her. Juliet's response: "Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this." So Juliet continues by saying, "For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss." So apparently Romeo has grabbed Juliet's hand, and their hands are now touching, or in a sense we could say their hands are now kissing. So Romeo, being a clever guy, says, "Have not saints lips and holy palmers too?" And Juliet's response: "Aye, yes, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer." So Romeo's like, "Well, our hands are touching. We have lips. Should our lips touch too?" And Juliet's like, "No, you're supposed to use your lips to make prayers to saints. Your hands are to pray to them. Your lips are to say the actual prayers." And Romeo says this: "Oh, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do." So Romeo again is kind of spitting game, saying, "You know what? Our hands are touching, Juliet. Let's let our lips touch." So he's basically asking her, "Can I kiss you?" Here's Juliet's response: "Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake." So saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. So Juliet is smart herself and is like, "Well, if you're worshiping me and I'm a saint, or like a statue in a sense, because that's what you would have, a statue of a saint. Since I'm a saint, I can't move. I'm stuck. So if you want our lips to join, you got to make that move." So she's putting the ball in his court in a sense and saying, "You want to kiss me? Come do it. You have to do it though. I'm not going to kiss you." But Romeo says, "Then move not while my prayers effect I take. Thus from my lips, by thy thine, my sin is purged." So Romeo kisses Juliet and he says, "Thank you, saint, for taking away my sins." Here's Juliet's response: "Then have my lips the sin that they have took." So Juliet apparently, remember, she's 13, Romeo's this 18-year-old good-looking guy. They don't know each other yet. They have no idea that Juliet's a Capulet. She has no idea that Romeo's a Montague, but she liked the kiss. Maybe it was her first kiss. Again, she's 13 years old. she says again, then have my lips the sin that they have took. So she's like, Romeo, you said you left the sin on me because as a saint, I'm basically forgiving your sin. You can't leave the sin on me. You got to take it away. So this is like her unique way of saying, kiss me again. Romeo says, sin from my lips, oh trespass sweetly urged. Give me my sin again. He's like, oh, you want me to take the sin back? Certainly. Here we go. Let's kiss again. And Juliet's like, you kiss by the book. You're a good kisser, Romeo. Then out of nowhere, guess what? This little romantic moment where Romeo and Juliet are holding hands and talking about how Juliet's this beautiful saint, this beautiful statue that Romeo is worshiping, and Romeo's gone on this religious journey. That's why he's the pilgrim that came and visited this Saint Juliet. The nurse shows up and crashes the party in a sense. The nurse says, Madam, your mother craves a word with you. So apparently Juliet's mom is looking for her. So what does that mean? Romeo and Juliet's little romantic moment is now over. Okay. Juliet leaves. Romeo says, what is her mother? Meaning like, who's her mom? Like he wants to know who she is. Remember, he's at a Capulet party. Chances are she's a Capulet. Here's the nurse's response. Mary Bachelor, her mother is the lady of the house and a good lady and a wise and a virtuous. I nursed her, daughter, that you talked withal. I tell you, he that can lay hold of her shall have the chinks. So he's basically saying, the nurse is basically saying that Juliet's the daughter of the house, meaning that this party is at Lord Capulet's house. She's Lord Capulet's daughter. And when she says, he that can lay hold of her shall have the chinks, that means money. So she's rich. Like, if you want her, you're going to be rich. Romeo says, is she a Capulet? Well, duh, Romeo, you're at a Capulet party. Of course she's a Capulet. So here's his response, learning that Juliet's a Capulet. Oh, dear account, my life is my foe's debt. So this is important. So debt is when you owe something. A lot of times you're in debt when you owe money. So Romeo's life is now his enemy's debt. So what does he mean by that? So Romeo's been depressed all of Act 1 because Rosaline doesn't love him back. Now he's in love with Juliet, and Juliet seems to love him back because they hold hands and kiss. So now Romeo says he's owing his life to his foe or his enemy. So that's why he's in debt to his foe or his enemy. And then Benvolio shows up. He's like, hey, we got to go. This party's over. Let's go home, Romeo. Romeo is like, all right, yeah, I fear we need to go. Let's go home. Lord Capulet basically tells everyone, hey, it's getting late. Party's over. Let's go to bed. Now we get back to Juliet. So Juliet goes back to the nurse after she's talked to her mother. And she says, come hither, nurse. What is yon gentleman? So as Romeo's leaving, she like points and says, hey, who's that guy? And the nurse is like, oh, that's the son and heir of old Tibero. And she's wrong. Then Juliet's like, what's he that is now going out the door? And the nurse is like, oh, Mary, I think that's young Petruchio. Juliet's like, no, not him. What's he that follows there that would not dance? And the nurse is like, oh, I don't know who that is. And Juliet's like, well, go ask him his name, nurse. If he be married, my grave is like to be my wedding bed. So another famous line of the play, this is foreshadowing. Juliet's answer is, if Romeo is married, my grave is like to be my wedding bed. So if Romeo is already married and he kissed me, I want to die. Because the only man I love is Romeo. Again, they just met. All they did was hold hands and kiss each other twice. But Juliet already thinks she's in love. I, in my personal opinion, think it's more acceptable that she feels this way. Because again, she's 13 years old and she's probably never been kissed. Where Romeo is 18 years old, he's probably had some relations with girls before. So, what I'm trying to say is it's a little bit more understandable that Juliet is feeling so infatuated with Romeo so soon because she is so young. Alright, the nurse finally finds out who he is. His name is Romeo and he's a Montague, the only son of your great enemy. So Juliet's like, oh crap, I just kissed my enemy. The guy I'm in love with is my enemy. How are we going to be together if we're enemies? So more famous lines from the play. This is also a couplet, 2 consecutive lines that rhyme. My only love sprung from my only hate. Too early seen unknown and known too late. So going back, what does that mean? So Juliet only has one love in this world. One love. Okay? And it's supposed to be someone she hates. Juliet's only supposed to hate one boy in this entire world. And that boy is Romeo, because he is the son of her enemy, the Montagues. However, this one boy that she's supposed to hate is the one boy that she loves. This part, the second part of the couplet, too early seen unknown and known too late. So what is she saying here? She's saying, when I first saw Romeo, I had no idea who he was. But now that I know who he is, it's too late. Why is it too late? Because she's already held his hand, she's already kissed him, and she already has these strong feelings that she thinks she's in love with him. So even though she knows that's her enemy at this point, she knows now that Romeo is a Montague, it's too late. It's already been done. They've already kissed. She can't take back those feelings. She's in love. She has to have him. Again, she's only 13, a little more understandable that she feels this way. Prodigious birth of love it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy. So she's like, this sucks. I love my enemy. Why'd this have to happen? And the nurse is like, what's this? What are you talking about? And Juliet's all like, oh, nothing, nurse. Don't worry about it. Why can't Juliet tell a nurse? Because if Juliet says, hey, nurse, guess what? I just hooked up with our enemy. The nurse would tell her what? You're stupid, Juliet. Why would you do that? You know you can't be with him. And besides, remember you're supposed to marry Paris. Forget about Romeo. So Juliet has to keep this a secret. Can Juliet tell her mom that she hooked up with Romeo at the party? Can she tell her dad? Absolutely not. They would be furious to find out that she hooked up with Romeo. So everything that happens between Romeo and Juliet is going to be very secretive. They can't tell anybody because their families will not support it. If Romeo says, hey, mom and dad, I want to marry our enemy's daughter, Juliet, they'll say, hell no. Juliet, hey, dad, I want to marry our enemy's son, Romeo. Hell no, Juliet, you're not going to do that. Besides, Paris wants to marry you. So it's a tough situation now because they are forced to be very secretive because they are in love, even though they just met and they've only kissed twice. They think they're in love and they can't share it with anybody. This next part is basically the end of Act 1, Scene 5. That's the final act of the play. So that's the end of Act 1. I did 6 recaps, about an hour and 25 minutes of recaps. That's about 40 minutes longer than just listening to the audiobook. So I doubt anyone's going to want to listen to all this. But if you find it helpful, great. I'm glad it helped you. If not, like I said, this is completely optional. You don't need to listen to it. But I tried my best to try to put Act 1 of Romeo and Juliet into modern English to help you guys understand. It's unlikely that I'll do this for Act 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'll probably just continue by using the recaps that I provided that are much more short and succinct. They're like anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes long. Where these recaps are basically 15 minutes per scene, which I understand is long. So, good luck to you guys. I hope you enjoyed these videos. I hope you found them helpful. Take care.